Welcome to the Ascent of Mount Carmel YouTube channel, where we discuss the landmark book on mystical theology by St. John of the Cross, Ascent of Mount Carmel. Today we're on the 9th chapter of the first book. The theme of this chapter is that desires defile the soul. St. John tells us that this is taught in Scripture. He that toucheth pitch shall be defiled with it. And to clarify, pitch is like tar, and when we allow our desires to settle on creatures, it's like getting doused in tar. Our desires stain our souls. According to St. John, there is more difference between the excellence of the soul and the best of the creatures than there is between a pure diamond or fine gold and pitch. Desires ruin the purity of our souls, and St. John tells us that this happens in the same way that a diamond that is dipped into tar becomes mired by it. As St. John discussed in prior chapters, even though we are much greater than creatures, they do pull us down to their level, and he says that there's more difference between the soul and other corporeal creatures than there is between a liquid that is highly clarified and mud that is most foul. He continues, even a highly clarified liquid would be defiled if it were mingled with mud. In the same way, the soul is defiled when it clings to creatures, because by doing so it becomes like the said creatures. St. John tells us that though the soul in itself is a beautiful image of God, in the exact same way that traces of soot would defile a face that is very lovely and perfect, even in this way do disordered desires befoul and defile the soul that has them. If we set out to speak of the foul and vile appearance that the said desires can give the soul, we should find nothing, not even the corruption of a dead body, nor anything else that is impure and vile, nor anything that can exist and can be imagined in this life to which we could compare it. Here's a more modern example to show the difference between the nobility of the soul and the quality of creatures. There is greater difference between the soul and the very best of any creature than there is between pure spring water and water that's in a sewage plant. However, the clean water would be defiled once it's mixed with the sewage. And the point of these examples is to show that the soul is defiled when it clings to creatures, and as we discussed in earlier chapters, by clinging to the creatures we actually become lower than them. St. John writes, "A single unruly desire, although it is not a matter of mortal sin, suffices to bring a soul into such bondage, foulness, and vileness, that it can no way come into accord with God in union until the desire is purified. What then will be the vileness of the soul that is completely unrestrained with respect to its own passions and given up to its desires? And how far will it be removed from God and from His purity?" As we discussed earlier in this series, St. Thomas Aquinas was a major influence on St. John of the Cross. St. Thomas said that when a man sins, he incurs a stain, inasmuch as he forfeits the luster of grace through the deformity of sin. Natural good is corrupted, inasmuch as a man's nature is disordered by a man's not being subject to God's. And this order being overthrown, the consequence is that the whole nature of sinful man remains disordered. When our souls are set on God, they are brighter than snow and whiter than milk and more beautiful than a sapphire. But when we live our lives in a way that is not pleasing to God and spend more time on creatures than with Him, it is as if our souls are stained blacker than soot. Our desires leave a mark and a deposit of impurity and vileness on our souls. There's a sort of spiritual inertia in us. When we have imperfections and desires, our thinking becomes clouded and we are less capable of guarding against new and worse attachments. However, when we are virtuous, we tend to move in the opposite direction. We seem to seek to make ourselves more virtuous and more pure. It would fill us with pity to see how each desire, in accordance with its quality and degree, be it greater or smaller, leaves in the soul its mark and deposit of impurity and vileness, and how one single disorder of the reason can be the source of innumerable different impurities, some greater, some less, each one after its kind. The unruly soul, according to the variety of its desires which it has for the creatures, has in itself a miserable variety of impurities and meannesses with which it is endowed by its desires. St. John cites Ezekiel to show the variety of desires and impurities. He devotes a couple of paragraphs to the book. As we discussed with the Ascent of Mount Carmel group, we do not necessarily defile our souls just by coming into contact with creatures. It is by deliberately loving our creatures and attachments that we defile our souls, and this is proven by Scripture. There is nothing from without a man entering into him that can defile him, but the things that come from a man, those are they that defile a man. As members of the group noted, sometimes even great saints are allowed to experience any number of horrific assaults from hell as a test. There is no sin in their rejection of their temptations, and they are rewarded with increased virtue, strength, and merit. St. John concludes, if we had to treat in detail of the lesser foulness which these imperfections make and cause in the soul, and that which is caused by venial sins, and likewise that which is caused by the desires for mortal sin, which is complete foulness of the soul, we should never end, nor would the understanding of angels suffice to understand it. But the point is that any desire, although it be for but the smallest imperfection, stains and defiles the soul. Well, I hope you enjoyed this installment. We'll be back again in about a week with another one. But in the meantime, please check out my Facebook page, which is linked down below. And please check out the Ascent of Mount Carmel group, which is a Facebook study group devoted to the study of mystical theology. And please, pray for the church.
Lord, I'm broken, I'm hungry, ragged and dirty too. Broken, hungry, ragged and I'm dirty too. If I clean up, sweet mama, can I stay all night with